Welcome inside another edition of the Forecast with Stingray and TP. I am your host, Stephen Ray, and on this edition, we are going to be talking a lot of severe weather because we actually have a confirmed tornado that happened about 35 minutes ago down in South Mississippi. We will show you that video. Plus, we will go in there and discuss and describe everything that's going to happen for now and then tomorrow as well, only on the forecast with Stingray and TP. Good Tuesday evening, everybody. This is Stephen Ray, and I hope everybody's doing well today. Now, we're zoomed in here over southern Mississippi because we actually have a tornado warning that was just issued a little while earlier. But first, let me go ahead and pull up my co-host, Taylor Plott. Taylor, how are you doing today, sir?
Pretty good, Stephen. How are you?
I'm doing good, man, and we've actually got some severe weather to talk about, and we can actually go back and forth and go between radars and show everybody what's going on down south of our area.
Yeah, a little bit of a surprise going on. I'm not surprised at the intensity of the cells. There's some decent instability down there, but what appears to be happening is they're attaching to kind of like a thermal boundary. It's hard to tell whether it's actually with the main warm front. It's definitely possible. This could be the warm front starting to get its act together and moving on off to the north across the area. So they're able to get a little bit more rotation to work with, but very impressive to see not only that confirmed tornado actually two of them, one with this cell a little bit ago, and then another one northwest of Hattiesburg. But based on the radar velocity signatures, very impressive to see the overall structure of the of at least one tornado video. That definitely looked like it was a multi-vortex type of tornado that developed.
And let me real quick, while you're actually talking about that, I'm actually going to pull that up and show everybody what I'm talking about. So go ahead, man. I didn't mean to interrupt, but
no, you're good.
This is a pretty interesting little thing here.
It is very, very interesting. There it is right there. And just when I saw the velocity signature, first off, I thought, well, if there's no tornado that's being reported on the ground with this, I'm not issuing a tornado warning on it if I work for the Weather Service, because the rotation didn't look that impressive. But when you see this video and that's what's happening underneath that velocity couplet, that's a full-on type wedge tornado.
Yes.
And you see the little feature that's off to the left. That's another what we call mesovortice. kind of another area of rotation that is rotating around the parent tornado. So not only is that possible that other one could be on the ground too, doing some brief damage, but that's just a very impressive type of overall structure to not only the base of the storm, but also the tornado underneath it.
Yes.
So, and that just based on the way that the radar was looking, and going back and kind of looking at some of what we call the mesoscale analysis, taking a look at what the atmosphere actually looks like within and kind of around that storm, it looks to be that the bulk of the strongest rotation was very, very close to the ground. So maybe only within like a few hundred, maybe a couple thousand feet of the lowest level of the storm. And then when you got above that, the overall shear starts to weaken. And so the overall intensity of the updraft starts to go less and less as you get higher. So that's probably why the rotational signature on the radar side of things, because both beams from Mobile and Jackson on that storm were probably about 5,000 feet or so above the ground. So, and it wasn't that impressive at that height. So that tells me that the better rotation and what actually transpired there was very much closer to the surface. It's probably about 3,000 feet and below is where you had the more maximized intense spin in the atmosphere.
And I will tell you this too. This one was actually the actual video that was the text that was attached to the video said "So Mississippi" and "Stringer." So that is the one that was further north near Hattiesburg.
Right, and if you draw a line on kind of all of these cells, you can see that they're all kind of generally along that boundary, that warm front that looks like it's the one that's getting its act together. The good news is, just kind of briefly looking over at my radar screen over to my left, they don't look, at least the ones down in Mobile, don't look to be as impressive. Now, the one up closer to Jackson that has a severe thunderstorm warning on it, that one's in a little bit better instability and a little bit better shear combination. That has underneath.
The warning text says tornado possible with the one that's south of Brandon. So that one's definitely going to need to be watched as it moves over here towards Polkville, Moulton, and Forest. So go ahead, man. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. Yeah, you're good. Yeah, I mean, obviously, with all that's going on with the storms, the Weather Service is putting that tornado possible tag on the severe thunderstorms. Good news is it's not looking as robust or impressive as it once did about maybe 10 to 15 minutes ago. It had a really good, well-defined hook on it. But that one's a little bit favorable, more favorable shear zone. Now there is one that is north west of Jackson, and that one it has a lot more lightning on it. But what the Weather Service in Jackson looks like they're doing, they've actually put ahead a severe thunderstorm warning. So it doesn't look like they're going to be extending the tornado warning from that, which is good news. But it looks like also on that one, it is a tornado possible tag on it as well.
Hey, Taylor.
Yeah.
Check out this one on the screen here. Rotation near Ruston, Louisiana, and that would be where the University of Louisiana Tech would be.
Yes. Looks like it's kind of within that little boundary as well. The Weather Service, I'm monitoring the Weather Service chat here. The latest from the Weather Service in Mobile, they're saying we're monitoring 3 different low-level circulations. First, just across Highway 98, southeast of McLean, where there is a public report of a possible power flashes. Therefore, is an unconfirmed report of a tornado. The circulation appears to have weakened since crossing Highway 98 and is headed towards Highway 57 west of Hillman. Second circulation is crossing Old Avera Road east of Jonathan, and eventually across Highway 57 north of Leakesville. This circulation has weakened but has been cycling in intensity. Third circulation is moving near southeast of McLean, but is aloft with a low-level circulation weak. We'll continue to monitor these storms closely, continue to take cover if these tornado warnings are issued for your area, and they continue to cycle up and down in intensity and can intensify on short notice. So don't let you down your guards. That's all just because of that boundary that is down there. Again, it looks like that's just based on what I can see mesoanalysis wise, it looks like that's where the actual warm front that we will have continuing to lift through the state of Mississippi and into Alabama later on tonight. Right now, it's more. It looks more of it's a zone where you're having higher dew points and you're getting a little bit more wind shear effect, obviously because of the boundary in place. So I would say probably one of two things is going to happen with this. One, which I would think would be more of even though this is definitely a lower end threat, it would be like the worst case scenario lower end threat would be that this warm front, as it continues to lift on north, it will continue to produce these what we call low top supercells. They're not like 40,000, 50,000 feet high. The tops on these things are only maybe about 20,000 feet or so. So they're more what we call low top supercells. Continue to develop those and pose a brief tornado risk basically throughout the entirety of the night with that. The other thing I could see happen with this, and this would be the best case scenario, would be that this is more of a localized, more shorter lived duration type of tornado event here, where you're only getting about maybe 2 to 3 hours or so, where you're having maximum instability and maximum amount of wind shear in place, which the wind shear is still on the very low end of things. And it would, so say that this started happening at like what, about I don't know, 6:30 or so, maybe an hour ago. So if this is that kind of better case scenario, we might only have about maybe 1 or 2 hours or so left of seeing this. Now that doesn't mean that throughout the entirety of the night we won't have to worry about this. It's just I don't see this being the more robust tornado threat. I can see it being prolonged into the night as it's lower end type of thing like we're seeing here, or this is more of that short-lived, very more localized, regional wise, if we will, kind of this southern Mississippi area for the next couple of hours, and then it's effectively over. So we'll see how it goes. Definitely, there is a lower end tornado risk with this, no matter what. We've been advertising that
hold
for the
on.
past day or two. But I'm actually very impressed to see all not only the signatures on the radar, but actually what is being produced underneath it is kind of just more just surprising to me that it's actually getting these type of photogenic tornadoes on the ground. I don't know if we lost Steven or not.
I'm sorry, man. I disappeared for a second. I'm sorry. Take a look at this. We just actually had this issued. So look at that.
Yeah, that would kind of go in line with seeing that if it prolonged into the night, how it is that very lower end tornado risk. Anytime you get the 2 to 5%, that's where you're dealing with the more isolated, maybe 1 or 2 tornadoes here and there type of situation. But the fact, like I said, the fact that the warm front is already producing this, it is in a very rich moisture environment, and there is just enough wind shear out there to get these storms rotating and being able to produce a tornado or two. But I don't see this becoming more robust as we go throughout the night. The shear should kind of generally remain the same. The shear doesn't really start to increase until we get into the late nighttime hours and then into the day tomorrow for kind of a more shorter window of period as the low pressure system kind of moves quickly on off to the north and to the east. But this is my radar point of view here, and you see there's just a little bit of lightning. There's the lightning counter up here. That's 18 strikes within the past 30 minutes or so, and so that's the one northwest of Jackson. And I've been kind of going back and forth and looking at what we call the shear rate with this, and it's not that impressive. You would kind of want to see the more reds and the golds being put in here. Here's the key to look at. So we're in that very lighter type of range there, and then these cells that are down here The one south of Jackson, see, that really doesn't have a lot on it. It was a little bit more impressive a while back. That's kind of gone away. And then the one down here, kind of a more line of supercells. That one sure rates a little bit better with that one west of Leaksville.
Mm-hmm.
But notice how there's no lightning with this at all.
Right.
And so you've got a couple of these areas here. You had one that was up there, this one right here, and you kind of got another one that is down in that area. So I mean, we'll probably continue to see these kind of cycle back and forth
Yes.
over the next maybe hour or so. But I think one of the good news is, especially with this one, let me see how fast they're moving real quick. I can put a storm track on it. It's moving about 20 miles an hour. So let me do that. I have it at like 27. Let me do 20, and then I'm going to take it out. We'll go 30 minutes. And notice how there's only one place on there, Clark, at about 828. So if there's any good news here, there's not really any major populated areas. This is more rural areas of southeastern Mississippi. So I mean that's good news that they're not moving into more well-populated areas. So we'll see. We'll see if these things continue to kind of pulse up and down. Again, I can see two things happening. One, they kind of continue doing what they're doing, kind of going back and forth throughout the remainder of the night. So we might have isolated tornado warnings here and there through the remainder of the evening. Or this, again, might just be a more localized, shorter duration type of event here where literally here in the next hour or two, things start to really wind down. I would say one thing we'd have to watch for would be these type of supercells that develop more by themselves. They can kind of take on their environment on their own. They don't have to compete with any other cell, like compete with anybody. So we'll have to watch and see with those. But the fact that they're really not getting that robust, and that has just really fallen apart.
Which one?
The one just southeast of Jackson. The top on it is now less than 13,000 feet. So they're really, really struggling. So again, there's not a lot of lift, upper level lift going with it. This is basically being pushed upwards motion wise in the atmosphere due to the warm front that is draped across the area. So that's going to probably keep it more localized, is the fact that it's only the warm front that's literally across this region right here. That's where the warm front's at. So all of these storms are kind of either attached or just to the north of the warm front. So yeah, that's basically what's going on environment wise with these cells. So if we get any other cells that can manage to get going along this line, they would have a chance of producing some tornadoes.
Yes.
But the good news is right now I don't really see anything that's kind of striking me as there's actually a tornado on the ground now.
Where?
No, I was saying that nothing's really striking to me now that
gotcha.
that's screaming at me signature wise that hey, there's a tornado here.
Yes.
Which is good news. So I would imagine that unless something changes, that tornado warning down there east of Hattiesburg is going to be able to be canceled or expired. It goes until 8:30, so it's got another 23 minutes on it. But
yes,
if it continues the way it's going, the way that National Weather Service in Mobile is talking about it, it's probably going to get canceled here in about 5 to 10 minutes.
Now look at that storm north of Jackson. You see those two areas right up there. Those
right
are interesting. Yeah.
These?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can kind of make out where they have, maybe some hook features on them.
Yes.
That's probably just due to the fact that there is wind shear in the area. This is probably the more interesting one here, and I kind of did a radar loop. I'll keep it going, but notice how it's moving in from the south. You kind of got two updrafts going on here. You've got one there and one there. So what would be interesting to see with that would be if you get a cell merger, which is definitely
Yes.
possible with this, it can actually enhance the rotation. So if that actually becomes a cell merger, the if it continues on its current track, it would probably increase rotation somewhere in this area right here.
Yep.
If it continues kind of doing its own thing, so that looks like it's two updrafts that are going up there. Rotation wise, there's really nothing. But this looks to be more well north of the
Okay.
warm front. So
Right.
I would say if anything rotation happens with that, it's going to be elevated, and
Yeah.
you probably be looking more at a small hell potential with that more than anything. I would say right now your nearest term tornado threat is going to be anywhere with these storms right there.
Yeah.
And if anything can kind of get going south of that, that's kind of
Yes.
where the warm front is at right over here. So anything south of that, you're in the warm unstable air mass and can have some
Mm-hmm.
rotation and shear to work with.
Oh
So
yeah.
anything north of this is in the cold sector or cool sector.
Yes.
Generally speaking, I know it's very warm out there, but dew point wise and temperature gradient wise, it's a lot more south of that warm front. So one other thing to look at real quick is I can let me put on the national radar is notice how all your lightning is associated with the cells that are up here,
Yeah.
even that one down there, and then the activity over here. So there's really not a lot of upper level support with these
Yes.
down here. So obviously the stuff down here from Jackson to Mobile is working off of instability and the fact that there's a warm front there. It's getting the lift on that. Anything kind of more up towards the cell just across the east of the Mississippi River, right here by the Arkansas Louisiana, kind of the
Yes.
tri point of the three states. That has a little bit better upper level support with it. So I mean, we'll continue to watch it. Still very interesting, to say the least.
Look at the signature with the storm near Ruston.
Which one is that? That one is that this one?
No, over there in near near Shreveport. Right there.
Oh, right over here. Let
Yeah.
me. I don't have the. Let me add the Shreveport radar real quick. Just give me 1 second. It might take it just a little bit to load.
Okay.
Shreveport. Actually, which one? Which is the closest radar? Is it Shreveport or is it
Shreveport. Yeah, Shreveport.
Shreveport? Okay. Yeah, because
It's
there's no radar. There's no radar on Monroe,
right.
even though there
KS.
probably should be.
It's KSHV.
Yeah, I got it. All right, so let's see. So there's the level 3. I don't know if it's got the level 3 velocity yet. We'll give it just a little bit. Sometimes it takes a little bit to get the higher resolution data ingested. I would say just based on that look right there, we can take a look at this skit right here. Tops on at about 20,000 feet. The max DBZ is 51 at about 12.5, so that tells me that the updraft is definitely decent on it. There's a level 3 velocity, so not really much on that. Let me look at the. And it hasn't ingested the storm relative yet.
Right. Well, dude, let's go ahead and talk about what we can expect for tomorrow.
So one of the things that we'll be watching for tomorrow and even through tonight will be not only what we're dealing with now, with we're having to watch the tornado potential, but what we'll get is this warm front will continue to lift off to the north, and will continue to produce these showers and storms overnight tonight across parts of Mississippi and central and northern Alabama. The main risk with the warm front would be some small hail and maybe some damaging winds. But as we've seen so far this evening, we'll have to continue to monitor the tornado risk as well. I don't think we'll get as bad to get a tornado watch. The only way we would get a watch would be that you're getting a lot more warnings out there and a lot more tornado reports. So it's definitely possible. I wouldn't put it past it, but the main issue tonight is going to be that small hail and some damaging winds. Now, as we get into late tonight, talking about generally after midnight and into the day tomorrow, once that warm front lifts to the north, this squall line will be developing along and just ahead of the cold front moving through. Now, that will definitely increase the damaging wind potential, but we'll also have to watch to see if there's any embedded circulations. Could be some brief tornadoes within the line. This is not expected to be a huge severe weather risk. There is a slight risk out tomorrow, mainly along and south of I-59 in Alabama and to parts of Mississippi as well, I think, in Georgia. The main thing that we'll have to watch for, so as we get into the late night hours, obviously the instability is going to be naturally less than what it is during the day. So while there'll probably be an isolated severe risk and probably get some severe thunderstorm warnings overnight tonight, once we get into the afternoon hours tomorrow, the instability really starts to ramp up closer to the Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, and Gadsden general area right there along I-59. And that's where you'll probably start to see an uptick in not only severe thunderstorm warnings, but some damaging wind actually occurring with that. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a decent damaging wind, more localized event across central Alabama. I don't think it's going to be that much of a risk into parts of Mississippi. You're kind of getting away from the overall shear and better dynamics. But obviously, it's possible that you could get some severe weather with that. And then once we head into the evening time frame tomorrow, all that will start to kind of die off as the upper level support kind of just leaves it behind. There's that level 2 data. So yeah, it just kind of looks like it's more of a cluster more than anything. So again, tomorrow definitely stay weather aware just in case warnings are needed. Not only severe thunderstorm warnings, but if they're tornado warnings as well, especially if we've seen tonight. But the good news is, as we go beyond tomorrow, it's going to be a pretty strong cold front moving through. You're going to notice it. If you're in the warm sector during the day across Alabama and Mississippi, you'll probably warm up into like the low to mid 70s. And then once that front comes through, you're dropping from about, say, 73 degrees to about 48 to 50 degrees within a matter of about 3 to 4 hours. So it's going to be a very, very sharp temperature gradient with this cold front. And then once that moves through, not only is your severe weather risk over, but your severe weather risk is probably going to be over for at least 7 to 10 days. I think we're watching a system that is kind of our next one after this, moving through maybe the middle part of next week, maybe Wednesday to Thursday time frame. Models are kind of going back and forth on how to resolve the upper air pattern. The GFS is showing some more showers and storms with it. The European's pretty dry. So while I got this up, I can pull up the models real quick. We can talk about what could be happening a little bit later on. Let me switch on over here to sharing this screen. So there's that. So now you can pop up the weather computer again, and then that will have the model data on it. So again, after we get this one done with, so here's the cold front and warm front that we're dealing with tonight. So as we head beyond that, honestly, on the backside of this, there's still some moisture left over across northern Alabama. I think the better shot at this is in Tennessee. But if there is some left over in northern Alabama, wouldn't be surprised to see a few snowflakes mixing in with any rain showers left over behind. So that trough moves through. We get cold. We're dealing with about 2 to 3 days worth, especially across northern Alabama, northern Mississippi, northern Georgia, and even parts of central Alabama. We'll be dealing with temperatures generally around and below freezing. I think the worst of the hard freeze, talk about temperatures getting into the 20s, will be coming on Friday morning. If memory serves, taking a look at these taking a look at the temperatures real quick. I believe it is Friday morning. Yeah, it's Friday. It's Friday morning where we're going to be dealing with the coldest temperatures out of this. Anywhere you see the kind of the reddish area, talk about temperatures generally in the mid to upper 20s. So then after that, notice how we start to get these red lines pushing well to the north. That's a nice ridge of high pressure in the upper atmosphere. And our temperatures are going to get very, very nice heading into next week. We're going to be starting off in the low to mid 70s for like Monday and Tuesday. And then once we get into like Wednesday, Thursday, towards the middle of the week, then we're going to be talking about temperatures probably more in the mid to upper 70s and even low to mid 80s in some places. But this is what the GFS is showing, and it's continuing to show this, that once we start getting to the middle to latter part of the week, that's when we'll probably see our next system develop. It's actually gone a little bit forward in timing with this run. The last run had it kind of more Wednesday. This is more Thursday to Friday. And then just taking a look at the upper air pattern going forward, we'll probably start to get a little bit more active again as we head to the kind of more middle part of April. Here's a look at the European model. So again, it goes system tonight. Again, wouldn't be surprised to see some snowflakes flying in northern Alabama on the back side of this. And again, we're dry going in next week. And then it also shows kind of that system getting its act together here near Kansas City. This would be Friday morning at about 7 a.m. if this verifies. So again, looking very, very nice, dry stretch coming up next week. We just got to get through this severe weather risk on the lower side of things for tonight and into tomorrow. And then after that, again, we get cold for a couple of days. But after that, we're looking more like several days of temperatures in the 70s and 80s and abundant sunshine starting at least starting on Saturday. Once we start to get Saturday, we'll start to warm up to more of our normal and then getting above normal going into next week.
Okay, I want to do something real quick.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna take your computer down, and I don't know if you saw this or not, but on March 25th, Tuscaloosa dodged a humongous bullet. Did
A
you
lot
see?
of people did.
Did you see it?
I did.
Okay, this is the radar as of 4:10 on March the 25th. Now, you have two supercells. One
Yep.
of them that is producing a tornado that is here in Greene County. You
Yep.
also have the one that produced the monster tornado that went through Centerville, Brent,
Yep.
and Greensboro. Now,
Yep.
let me show you this. You actually had a tornado on the ground that was actually moving towards Tuscaloosa at this time. And then what happened was the southern storm became the more dominant storm and it choked off the one to the north.
Yep.
But now, dude, can you imagine if that thing had gone through Tuscaloosa and that southern storm hadn't have picked up?
Yeah. What would have happened if you take away that southern storm down there, the one around Forkland?
Yes.
If you just take that one completely off the radar and it's not even there, that's I remember seeing that live at that point, and it was just, I knew we were dealing with a bad situation. But if you take that away, that signature would be on the one north of that, and that tornado would be the one that would go generally parallel to I-20, and it would go right through Tuscaloosa, up through Brookwood,
Yep.
up through the western parts of Jefferson County, and guess where it would be headed? Right
Yes.
towards Fultondale, and then right up towards areas either clipping Blount County or getting into St. Clair County and going on up into near the Gadsden area as well. So if you take away that southern storm, that signature on the southern storm would be the signature on the one that he has circled there. And
Yes.
you're looking at, if you take it at face value and exactly what happened to the south, that's an EF3 tornado that's going through Tuscaloosa, through Coaling, through Brookwood, and
Yep.
through the northern part of the Birmingham metro area, just like the one did on April 27th. That was almost the exact same path
Yes.
that supercell was taking, like it did on that day.
And as you can see, if you progress it out, once it got to Union, it just died, and that one
Yeah,
down there just choked it off.
yeah, and that's one of the things that is very, we can see what the atmosphere is going to be like, and so yes, it definitely that day warranted a high risk for sure, and even the one before that warranted a high risk day. But we don't know, we don't have the technology or science or skill yet in forecasting where we can actually determine where everything is actually going to happen. We can give a general idea, and honestly, my general idea was the worst tornado threat would probably be from Tupelo to Huntsville, down to Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, and north. That kind of general area from Tuscaloosa, Columbus, over to Hamilton, Jasper, and up towards Decatur and Huntsville and Florence. That's where the better overall shear and instability combination looked like it was setting up. But what eventually started happening, which is really good for northern Alabama, but it was bad for central Alabama, was you had all these supercells and kind of clusters that developed down there, and it basically just not only it did do the same thing with this storm, where the storm south of it choked off the inflow to the storm north of it, but all of that complex that got going choked off any storm threat that northern Alabama and northern Mississippi had. And on top of that, there's a little bit of a cap that actually kind of came in place from that, which is good. So you see all of that rain, all of the storm activity going on there, and if you draw a line on the northern side of extent of that, everything south of that, you had severe weather and you had a tornado outbreak. Everything north of that, you were fine, basically. Yeah, everything to the north, there was maybe a couple of tornado warnings, if I remember correctly, and it wasn't really until you got into Tennessee that you dealt with um, any other severe weather issues, and that was just because you had more dynamic support up there, and you kind of had the winds up there were kind of more uh, oriented to where you could get a little bit more moisture inflow in on it. So yeah, the saving grace for northern Alabama and northern Mississippi was the where all this lined up. And I
Yep.
started noticing that earlier on, and I told myself, if this continues for a couple more hours, I don't see anything happening big time tornado wise across northern Alabama. And that's just, you don't want to see a signature like that. That makes my heart sink when I see that when I'm doing severe weather coverage, whether it's on streaming on Facebook or whether it's actually in studio in person up on the key wall. Whenever you see a signature like that on velocity, I know by far what exactly is happening underneath that, and it is on the weather community side
Look
of
at that.
things. When you're just dealing with that, it is the best way I can describe it in feeling is that it's a complete sense of awe, inspiring for one. But the other thing, which is much more powerful, is the fact that you know
Look at that.
exactly what's happening underneath that signature, and there's nothing you can do about it. And the only thing you can do is just track it, give as many people ahead of it a heads up as you can, and then just pray. for the people that are underneath that, because like I said, I know exactly what's going on there. I could immediately told you that that was going to be a violent tornado. I couldn't really tell you exactly what the EF rating was until afterwards, but I can give you that it was going to be an EF2 or higher. Um, but that's honestly one of the worst feelings in the world on the meteorology side of things to see that, because like I said, one, you know exactly what's going on underneath it, and two, you can't do anything about it. I mean, you can
Right.
give people the heads up, but you can't put your hands up and just click a button and it's gone. I wish we could do that. I really do. I really wish we could. But it's one of the worst feelings in the world on the weather side of things,
And
because you
see,
want to do everything in your power to not only stop it and get people, in a very good safe place. But one of the things that I try to stress with people is on a, and I'm trying not normalizing this by any means when I talk about like our normal severe weather, and then these situations are not your typical, like what we're dealing with tonight or tomorrow, where yeah, there might be a couple of tornadoes here and there, but the chance of it is low. You're probably dealing with more, gusty winds or some damaging winds. uh, this was not that type of situation. This was your, okay, this is your full fledged, you're going to deal with some violent tornadoes with this. And there's not just going to be one, there's probably going to be two, three, four, five of them. And one of the things that I try to stress to people is that if you're dealing with like the tornadoes that we had going on in Mississippi tonight, you can be in your most interior room, bathroom, closet, and literally be just fine. You can be just fine with that if you're dealing with an EF0, EF1, EF2, even an EF3 tornado. You're going to more than likely be okay if you're in that safe place. The problem area that you get into, and this is very good that these more higher end events are definitely rarer, but when they happen, if you get an EF4 or an EF5 tornado that hits your house, if you're in your safe place, which is a closet or a bathroom in the interior portion of your home, that's not going to be good enough, unfortunately. Those are the ones that you need to be either in a certified tornado shelter that can withstand those higher winds, or you need to be underground. If you're caught under one of these EF5s, which thank goodness we didn't have one on that day, but we did have an EF4 that did some horrendous damage over there in Georgia. But if you get those higher end tornadoes, you can do all you want in your interior room, but unless it's actually a like steel cased tornado shelter or you're underground, you're not going to survive it, because that sucker is just going to wipe that foundation clean. If you
yeah,
see the images of those higher end tornadoes, the only thing you see left is just the foundation, especially with the EF5 tornadoes. And one of the things that just still boggles my mind, that it's just the power of nature that can do that. But on your site built homes, when they lay the foundation down, they have what's called the anchor bolts that
yes,
are on the exterior parts of the house, and that goes up into your walls, and it anchors down those exterior walls to the foundation. And when you get an EF5 tornado, and sometimes even an EF4, if it's a higher end EF4, when it goes over that house, it's going to just wipe everything off that house. But then the anchor bolts are not only sometimes standing left over because they're into the foundation, but some of them are just completely bent over. And those are very, very, very strong, high grade steel bolts that are put in there. And they're put in there for a reason. And the reason is for severe weather and tornadoes. It's to keep the frame of the house as sturdy as it can. So
right.
that's why if you have an EF0, 1, 2, or even 3, those, yeah, you're probably going to have some outer walls collapse, but more than likely those anchor bolts are still going to be holding on to at least part of that exterior wall and that foundation. But when you just get those EF4 and EF5, it's just even those are not good enough, and they just completely wipe the slab clean. So that's why I really stress when we're dealing with a higher end severe weather event, a very volatile atmosphere, like what we saw last Thursday and even into the previous week too. Even though that one didn't really pan out on the strength wise, you still got a lot of tornadoes out of it, over 30, I believe, total throughout the entirety of the event. But there really wasn't a EF4, big time tornado. But I really stress when we get into those higher events that if you can, you want to go in, get to a tornado shelter that is built, that is certified to withstand EF5 winds. If you have one at your home, that's perfect. I would just kind of, obviously you can better be in your house and then know when to go there. But if you don't have that ability to get into one of those shelters, if you have it at your home, just go to a community shelter, stay in there for the duration of the event. When you're dealing with a higher end severe weather risk, like what we saw on Thursday, where you have a greater likelihood of seeing multiple EF4s, fives, even EF3s, those very higher end on the spectrum tornadoes, your life is going to be much safer and you're going to be much better off actually being in one of those shelters throughout the duration of the event than you are going to be not only just in a mobile home in general, but in your site-built home. You're going to be much safer doing that. But
hey, I got a question for you.
what's that?
With this being a large, violent tornado, do you feel like that this could have been another vortice on the backside or straight line winds?
Pop
That
on the reflectivity real quick. That's noise.
Okay.
So what's going on there is there's really not a lot of obviously items or I'm blanking on the scientific term here for some reason. Um, anything, any object that the radar can actually
right.
bounce back, whether it's rain, hail, or debris. So if you go back to the reflectivity, you'll notice that that's kind of a dead zone there. So
Yes.
what you might have going on there is either it's just an artifact. That was the word. That was the term I was looking for. An artifact, meaning that it's really just that's bad data, or
Right.
you could get a little bit of maybe what's called side lobe contamination. And I can't really get into that without getting really specific. But basically, in a nutshell, what it is when the radar, you see the dish and the antenna, when it shoots out the beam on the very fringes of where the radiation, the radar beam comes out of, you can get leakage or some radiation emitting gets leaked a little bit on the outside of where it's coming out of. And what can happen is if there's really no returns that the radar is seeing, like in that situation there, it will actually pick up on that kind of leaked out um, uh, energy, if you will, coming from the radar. And so then it will pick that up, and the receiver sees it as it's something there. So it could be that. And anytime you see that, again, usually it happens on the edges of the
Right.
storms. If you get it, where there's kind of a sharp reflectivity gradient. And so again, it's just it could be that the radar is actually picking up on a little bit of leaking out uh, radiational energy from the transmitter
Yes.
out of the dish, and so it can kind of register that as, oh, I'm actually seeing something, when it's really not. It's just seeing fake data, basically, or fake objects out there.
Notice the
And that
donut
right there
hole
is what we call a bounded reek ecoregion,
and a
donut
donut
hole,
hole.
donut hole. And anytime you see those, there's not necessarily there will be a tornado on the ground, but there's a higher chance that is one, because that shows that the entire storm has just really just become wrapped up, and you start getting that just really just tells you in a nutshell that the rotation whatever it is really, really strong, like you see there.
So, man, that was a pretty nasty event, and Tuscaloosa was saved by just a scale, just by, just barely saved there, man.
Yeah, and you actually, I don't know if you can go back to that just real quick. I might have had because you looped the data right there, and I might have another explanation for that little spot that you circled.
Give
I don't
me
know
just.
how quick you can go back, but when you looped it, I noticed that there was still some pretty hefty velocity signatures with that. What you could have had happening there was on the back side of that supercell. When you get the wraparound wind, the velocity, that's what we call the rear flank downdraft. And so it's possible that you might have had, that little, the area you circled. So if you loop it one more time, that area right there, if you loop it one more time, notice how you're still kind of getting it, but it's jutting back and forth. So that
Yes.
does kind of lead me to believe that it's probably a little bit of a side lobing or just some just bad data in general. One of the other things that could be going on there, because there is a little bit better velocity just around it, it could be just kind of winds at the just above the ground, kind of still being kind of drugged down a little bit, either from the backside of the storm that has come around, or it could just be that it's again just some bad data. But nonetheless, when you get on the backside of these supercells, especially if you're close to it, you'll get when it comes close to you, you'll get an increase in wind coming in from the south or southeast, and that will be the inflow winds coming into it. And those could be on the order of about 50 or 60, maybe even 70 miles per hour. When you're out in the plains and there's no trees to block this wind, you can get inflow winds easily about 70 or 80 miles per hour just going into the storm. Now, when that storm passes and it comes on the backside of where you're at, you'll get what's called the rear flank downdraft, and that's the winds, the cooler air, rain-cooled air coming down from the supercell itself, and it gets wrapped back around the backside of the circulation. And those could have some damaging wind gusts with it too. So those could also be about 60, 70, or 80 miles per hour or more, just depending on how strong of a rotation it is. So just based on the fact that that was an EF3 tornado with max winds of about, I think they set it at 150, if I'm not mistaken. So if you're dealing with inflow is probably going to be close to about 60, 70, maybe 80 miles per hour with that, probably close to about 70 or 80, really just right up next to the storm. And then the rear flank is probably going to be around that same amount as well. But the good news is we're not seeing the rotation signatures tonight like what we did on last Thursday. And
Yep.
I don't think we'll see those tonight. I would honestly be very, very, very surprised if we get any big time signatures tonight like we saw last Thursday.
Well, now there was one that was over here near Jackson, Mississippi, that I had my eye on here on my radar scope on my phone because something looked eerily interesting. Look at this area right there.
Let me pop on the reflectivity real quick. That's probably kind of what we were just talking about off to the east of that big time circulation there.
Right.
There's probably some gusty winds involved, but that looks like it's just.
That does look interesting, doesn't it?
It does. But when you put the reflectivity on it and loop that, see how it's kind of dead. So that tells me that there's probably some turbulent air going on there. You see how you're getting more showers kind of develop around it.
Yes.
So that kind of tells me there's probably just a lot of motion going on, more up and down motion as opposed to
right.
That
could be a
tornadic motion.
Yeah, that could be an outflow boundary.
Yeah, it's probably an outflow boundary. Again, it looks like it's probably just more turbulent winds because
Right.
you're getting some more development there. So again, it's probably more instead of when the radar beam is looking at it, instead of looking at it going, horizontal left, that way, like a tornado rotation would be, it's more going kind of up and down. That's where you're kind of seeing that you get higher, lower, the higher velocities. You're kind of going back and forth right there.
Yes. Well, man, I think that's going to do it for this edition of the forecast with Stingray and TP. TP, do you have anything else that you would like to add before we sign off?
Um, just a note about how I think the severe weather season is going. Um, I was talking to a few of my colleagues. It was back. I have to go and look back in the text, but I think it was like either late February or early March, kind of that time frame. And the way that the pattern looked like it was setting up, we were all kind of in agreement that if when it starts getting active, it's probably going to get very active very fast.
Right.
And unfortunately, that is actually what is transpired. I have to go back and look and do some research. I meant to do this a couple of days ago, but just never got around to doing it. But I do want to see. I know that in the past we've had back-to-back high-risk days with one system where it would either come out of the plains and you have a high risk there, and then you get another high risk the next day across the southeast. But that's with just one system. I don't know if there's ever been or when, if there was one, how long ago it was that there was back to back high risk events within about a week to 2 week time frame. So we're talking about one system coming in that created a high risk day, and then the next major system behind it, which was literally about 8 days later, also produced a high risk as well. I don't know if that's ever happened. Uh, if it has, I don't think it's been recent. It's probably been quite some time. But I
Right.
was very interested to see the data on that to see if that has actually happened before. So going forward, we're going to be getting into more of a lull in the severe weather risk, at least major severe weather risk. Again, there probably might be a lower end risk, maybe either somewhere down here or in the plains towards the middle of next week, if the model guidance is correct, and that's when our next system would move in, but it doesn't have a big time severe look as it looks right now. So it looks like the pattern is setting up in a way that at least the beginning of April through about the early middle part of April. So talking about April 1st through about maybe April, I would say April 15th or so, looks like it's probably going to be, if we have any severe weather, it's not going to be humongous as it looks right now. Again, things can obviously change, but the way that the pattern looks like it's setting up, it looks to be more quiet or more tamed, if you will,
Right.
going into the beginning part of April. Now, I think that one or two things is going to happen as we get further into April, and that is either one, here in the South, just talking about Dixie Alley in general, we're going to get active real quick once again and deal with maybe another higher end severe weather risk, maybe, because that's usually when you go back and look at these past two events that happened on Thursday and into and the one even before that. Those type of setups we usually get into the middle part of April. That's when we start getting our more robust uh, threats. So the fact that it's happening in early to or at least middle to late March is kind of eye popping, at least in my point of view. Um, so either one will get really active once again towards the middle to latter part of April, where it could be we're dealing with maybe another high risk day. Who knows? Uh, but it looks like the pattern could be kind of flipping back to that. So that could be one thing. The other thing would be that we really don't see anything else down here in the southeast, and everything just quickly kind of switches over to the plains side of things. Usually, if you go by like a normal sense of a severe weather year, the plains really don't start seeing their big time activity until it's like either late April or early to mid May. It's usually May when it really starts moving up there. So again, that's kind of the two things I could see happening going forward. I can tell you that we're not done with just dealing with severe weather in general here in the South. We're going to get something later on in April and even into May. But if just looking at the way the pattern looks like it could be going, I could see where either we get really active once again down here into the middle to latter part of April, or it just completely flips already, and we don't really see a lot of stuff happen down here, and the plains start seeing more of their severe weather, and we would be kind of more transitioning already into less severe weather risks and more summertime type of stuff going on.
All right, man. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the forecast with Stingray and TP. We hope you have enjoyed it, and join us again next week only on the forecast with Stingray and TP. In the event that we have any tornadoes or severe weather tomorrow, both of us will be on our social media accounts giving you the latest weather information.